not doing this right. Hi. Okay,
Hi.
welcome. This is the Lady Entrepreneur and my special guest today. And you know what I should have asked you? How do you pronounce your name?
Sure. It's Alelia. And the
Alelia.
way that, to make it easy, it's like Amelia, but with an L. So like
Okay.
Amelia, Bedelia, Ophelia, Aurelia, it's Elia. So that's, I know sometimes that's a little confusing for people, but it's Alelia.
Alelia. Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
Alelia. Alelia Bundles is the great granddaughter of Madam C.J. Walker. And so, like I was telling you before, Alelia, I want to. So, the premise and the purpose of the Lady Entrepreneur is to inspire struggling women entrepreneurs, right? And I think that because I'm in that position, right? I'm struggling to launch a business. I'm struggling. I have a young family, and so I have a lot of things going on. And when I came across your great grandmother's story, I felt compelled to share it, and I thought this would be a great start for the lady entrepreneur to tell her story. And I read your book. As soon as I saw there was a book available, I was like, okay, I got to get the book. And it's called On Her Own Ground: The Life and Times of Madam C.J. Walker. And the inscription that you put in the book almost made me cry, right? It says, to Alexa Fernandez, like Madam Walker, may you prosper with purpose. And I believe that we're all put on this planet with a purpose. And I think that the lady entrepreneur is my purpose. And I just want to tell a good story. You know, I feel like we need inspiration. And so I thought this would be a great start. And so why don't you tell us the story of your great grandmother?
Well, first of all, I thank you so much for reading the book, and I'm just so glad that Madam Walker's story inspires you. That's exactly why I did all that research, because I wanted people to understand the journey of an entrepreneur, the journey of a woman who, like anybody who goes into business and like anybody who has a life worth living, there are some challenges and there's some struggles. And Madam Walker had a great success story in the end, but she had a lot of struggles starting out in life. And for people who know a little bit about Madam Walker, and for those who don't, she was born in 1867, 2 years after the end of the Civil War. That feels like ancient history, but history repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
And she was struggling. Her family, her parents, and her older siblings had been enslaved. She was the first child in her family born free. We still experience the legacies of slavery and racism in America and the things that create challenges, but she was in the midst of that. By the time she was 7, both of her parents had died. She had to move in with an older sister, and it was a really difficult existence. Her brother-in-law was abusive, and so she got married at 14 to get a home of her own, had a daughter at 17, and her first husband died. So you can just think, by the time she was 20 years old, it looked like nothing was ever going to go right for her. And yet, by the time she died at age 51 in 1919, she was living in a mansion in Irvington, New York, employing thousands of women, giving money away to the NAACP's anti-lynching fund, a patron of the arts, a political activist, and a woman who had educated thousands of women. So there is an origin story that is full of struggle and full of hardship. There's that struggle of becoming an entrepreneur, but also beginning to realize that this hair care product that she developed that enabled her to become successful really became a means to an end to inspire other women.
Yeah. It's. Did I tell you I went to Irvington.
Oh, did you?
I did. I find it's funny because my first entrepreneurial endeavor was a laundromat. I self-funded a laundromat in 2009. And so when in reading her story, she was a washerwoman. That's how she started, and I was like, I was a washerwoman. And so there's a lot of I feel like I have a lot of connections with her, and so I felt drawn to go visit Villa Lewaro. Is that correct?
Bella, yeah, Bella Lewaro.
Lewaro. And so I dragged my family, my husband and my two kids. And it was funny because on the way there, you know, my husband was talking and the kids were my kids are 18 months and 8 months. So they're little, right? And so they're chatting. The car was filled with noise and the GPS. And I have to tell you that from the moment that I pulled into that street, I didn't realize that was the house until I was a little bit a quarter of the block in. And the car went silent. I don't know if everybody just shut up. I don't know, but in my mind, the car went silent, and I gasped. And I was like, and my husband was like, why? You know, what's the big deal with this house? And I realized afterwards that it's a confirmation for me that it really is possible, right? And if for someone like Madam C.J. Walker to go through, she was an African American woman, right, that started a business. What was it, 1906? She officially launched her business, you know.
That's right.
I just think all the things that she had to go up against, right? And despite all those obstacles, she made it, right? And so I think when I feel like I'm having a bad day, right, I sit there and I think, this woman made it. Despite, I was reading a part where she had actually was already making money and she was contributing to the YMCA. And was it Booker T. Washington?
That's correct.
Was still kind of ignoring her. You know, I mean, I just sit there and think, God, like she was relatively successful already, right? And it sucks because I feel like that kind of stuff still happens now.
Oh yes, it still happens, you know. And you know, Booker T. Washington was a very powerful person. He was used to calling the shots, and you know, while as an African American man, he still faced his own you know, set of challenges and discrimination and, you know, all of those kinds of things. Still, that there was some of that male privilege that was going on with him. And even though she was successful, he really felt that he was in a position to be able to give her permission to speak. And, you know, certainly we still see that. I mean, I was just on a phone conversation with someone who continued to remind the other person and I how much money he made, and he had to get off the phone because he had a board meeting and he's on 7 boards, and he had contributed this much money. And I just thought, you know, and I there were so many things I could have said to him, you know, like wow, la-di-da, but I just said, oh, how wonderful that you're able to do that. And you know, but that kind of thing still continues. People are not self-aware, but I think that with Booker T. Washington, Madam Walker read him.
Yes, she did.
And
yes, she did.
Stood up to him, and then he began to have respect for her.
Yeah, I thought, in different parts of the book, right? And the initial part that made me cry was when you were writing about slavery and how the slave owners were talking about being a little bit human and letting the African American mothers stay with their young. Mm-hmm. I highlighted it in the book, and of course I can't find it now, but there was a passage when you were talking about that, and in light of what's happening now in America, right? I thought, God, you know, this is stuff that was happening in the early 1900s, right? And they were able to have some compassion, right, for the slave women to keep their young, you know.
Yeah, but not much. I mean, people, you know, as you know, say history repeats itself. So many families were torn apart, and I think that, you know, when we look now, you know, during slavery, it was just routine to take children away from parents, to sell children. We saw this in the 1930s and 40s when Mexicans and Mexican Americans who had lived in the United States for years were forced to move to Mexico. The Japanese internment camps, and we're certainly seeing this right now on the border with families from Central America. So there is this, you know, this sense of injustice. And it really is women. I think one of the things that made Madam Walker so powerful to other women is that she had been through those really difficult times, and she had been an orphan, she had been a widow, and she knew that women had to take care of themselves, even though there were many people who just, wanted to put her in her place, both as a woman and as an African American. And she realized that by helping women to have their own independent income, that she would help take away some of that oppression that they experienced. And because their customers were other Black women, it meant that they were not dependent on someone else to go to work in their homes, that they couldn't be exploited in other ways because they were in the service of other Black women.
In the research that I've been doing about successful, so now your great-great-grandmother was, I think it's the Guinness Book of World Records, has her as the first female American self-made millionaire. Is that correct?
Right.
That's the correct title?
Right. And, and here's where I am on that. It is for me, a lot of people like to say that, and that Madam Walker was the first self-made American woman millionaire, and meaning that she didn't marry somebody who already had money, or she didn't have a parent, a father, and she didn't inherit the $1 million. And I think that when you are doing historical research, it's very hard prior to now, prior to the mid-20th century even, to document a lot of these things, because women and people of color stories were considered insignificant. And so a lot of people didn't have records. But the thing that we're able to say with Madam Walker's life, we have the records to show that she was a millionaire when she died, because she was smart enough to hire a really good lawyer who really kind of served the functions of chief financial officer, chief operations officer,
He did a little
CEO.
bit of everything.
She was chairman of the board, but her lawyer and the people that she hired as her bookkeeper, who would have been the CPA, and as the woman who was the manager of her factory, they were all really good at what they did. She knew that she had not had a lot of formal education herself. And so she was smart enough to surround herself with people who could fill in those gaps. And as a result, we have records. So that when she died, we know that her homes, her real estate, her cars, her jewelry, her furs, her artwork, those kinds of things were worth somewhere between $600,000 to $700,000 in 1919 dollars. And we know her business would have been worth somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million minimum. And so when you put together her personal assets and the value of her business, you can say she was a millionaire. There are other people who made money before Madam Walker, but they're not documents to really show that.
Well, I'm going to stick with that. I like that title.
I know, it's kind of funny. It's like one of those really long answers, and I think we all like to have just like that, that soundbite, that tagline. But my journalist self and my, independent scholar self makes me delve a little deeper. But I at least like to, if somebody challenges you on that, at least I have given you the background on how we arrive at it.
Yeah. I don't care. to me, she's really, she's an inspiration, and I hope that. Why isn't there a movie on her? I feel like.
But there are many things in the works. So like this week in Washington D.C., there's an annual March on Washington Film Festival every July in Washington D.C. And in 2018, we're hosting 3 events on July 13th focused on Madam Walker.
Oh.
A breakfast with the hair designer from Black Panther, Camille Friend. We'll have a private breakfast with salon owners. Then there will be an event at a beauty school that's free and open to the public. And in the evening, we're showing $2 and a Dream, a documentary about Madam Walker that actually was made in 1987.
Oh, wow.
by the really, fabulous filmmaker Stanley Nelson, who's known for his documentaries. And Stanley did this film, his very first film project. His grandfather was Madam Walker's attorney, F.B. Ransom. So this is how he started. And now he's, one of the most renowned documentary filmmakers. So there has been a really great documentary about Madam Walker that's been around for a while. There are some other, BBC, PBS, other documentaries that include her. And then we have, in the works, in development, a Netflix series that will star Octavia Spencer.
What?
So that's in development. So that's in the process of the script being written, and
that's awesome.
All of that. So we're fingers crossed that it will finally happen. Now, Hollywood is Hollywood, and so timetables are not always exactly what you want them to be.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that. I think especially in today's day, I feel like we need more inspiration. We need like a feel good story. And if this isn't a feel-good story, then I don't know anything about stories.
But, I wanted to just go back to Villa Lewaro. I'm so glad that you felt the magic of the house. I don't know if did you get a chance to go outside and walk around the
I left my kids I left my kids and my husband in the car.
Good.
And I went and, so now it's a private residence, right? So I didn't go inside, but there's a path in the back.
That's right.
I stood and then there was joggers and there people and I'm sitting there trying to take pictures, and I felt like such a tourist, but there's a magic there. I absolutely felt it. And it just, and I don't, why isn't that a museum or, like I thought this could be like a conference hall.
Here's where things are. The thing that's so exciting to me is, one thing that's really great is that aqueduct, that's the Croton Aqueduct, that's the source of water from upstate New York to New York City.
Oh.
And so that aqueduct goes, people are jogging because that trail goes for many, many miles. You can, look that up, the Croton Aqueduct.
Okay.
But that means that people can actually walk behind the house without trespassing.
Right.
And they can get a sense of it. And so that makes me feel very good. The history of the house is this. Madam Walker built the house, moved into the house actually 100 years ago this year, in May of 1918. So the house is now 100 years old. Wow. She moved into the house. She had Christmas there, her 51st birthday there, but she died in May of 1919. And so she really was only in the house for just about a year. Her daughter continued to own the house, had fabulous parties, and many famous people came to the house. My grandmother was married in Harlem, but the big reception was there. There were lots of things that went on in that house. And then the house was sold to a group called Companions of the Forest. It was a white women's benevolent organization, and they used the house as kind of a getaway for some of their members. These were working women who they would give them sort of a weekend and they could, rest. And then it became a kind of a rest home, retirement home for those women. They owned the house until the mid-'80s, and that group was dying out. And they really were not interested in Madam Walker's legacy at all.
I'm sure.
But they did, the good news is that they didn't really do much to change the house. So they sort of kept it intact. Then it was bought by a couple named Darlene and Inga Appel. They owned it for about 10 years. And in 1993, Harold and Helena Doley purchased the home. And Harold is from New Orleans. He's an investment banker, and they have owned the house. But they have actually just sold the house.
Oh, they
did?
And,
there will be an announcement soon. I can't really, talk about it right now.
Oh, okay.
But there will be an announcement soon about the house. So it's not really... these days, people say, why isn't it a museum? And this is another thing. I'm going to give you more information than you want to know. But house museums really struggle right now because people can see so many things online. School systems don't have money for the buses to take the kids on the field trips. And so it's really hard to maintain a house museum unless you have a big endowment of many millions of dollars to pay the taxes and the upkeep and that kind of thing. But, we are hopeful that the house will be open to the public periodically, at least a few times a year.
Okay.
So that fingers crossed on that.
Yeah.
Because it's an amazing place. In 1998, it was a designer show house to benefit the United Negro College Fund, and lots of people had a chance to tour the house, to go through it. And I think, just like you, I feel a sense of magic every time I'm there.
I can't even tell you. And then I kept thinking, like a center for women entrepreneurs. I don't know about a center, but even like a.
Yeah, that's a really good thought.
Yeah, I don't know. I just and I thought that would be great. Like, you know, if I wanted to do like a meetup of women entrepreneurs. That would be a great, I mean, I don't know, just the history itself, and I don't know if that's an option, but I just
keep that dream going. Keep that dream in your mind.
It's possible. It's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah, but there's a magic there, and you can tell that it hasn't been, it hasn't been lived in. You know, you can't tell that, but despite the wear and the tear and the years, there is still something that it pulled me, and then we stopped, and then we left, and then we came back. I came back 3 times.
Good.
Went back.
The Doleys have actually lived in this house since 1993.
Oh, have they?
And they have done a great job of restoring it.
Oh.
They have done lots of infrastructure. The roof, when the companions of the forest were there, they just put regular, asphalt shingles on the roof, and the Doleys totally restored that beautiful red tile roof. They've remodeled the kitchen, the carriage house that's off to the side on the south side of the house. They have changed into 2 really lovely loft-like apartments. So they put a lot into the house. They redid the swimming pool, and so
I couldn't see the swimming pool.
They've done a lot. They've done a lot.
Oh, have you been able to go to the house?
Yes, I haven't been there in a couple of years, but I've been there a number of times.
Oh, how did it feel?
Oh, it's an amazing place. We just did something for Essence Festival. I did a narration of a virtual tour. And you can actually go onto the National Trust, I think you may have seen it, on the National Trust savingplaces.org, I think.
I did.
And you'll see the virtual tour. Now, when you're just looking at it on the computer, I don't think you get that sense of 3D, but with I know that at Essence Fest, people were able to put on the goggles and to be able to feel as if they were having a tour inside the house.
Yeah, I could just imagine. But
it's a great place.
Yeah. How do you feel knowing that your great-great-grandmother accomplished so much?
I'll tell you that obviously it is an amazing thing to be able to have the opportunity to tell her story to other people. As a kid growing up, it was not the first thing on my mind, and I'm really grateful to my mother that she did not make it a big deal, because I don't think it is a good idea for kids to grow up with that kind of pressure. To think that you have to live up to somebody else's, image, or that you have to be somebody else. And so my mother was really good about saying, you should do you, essentially. Learn how to, learn what you love. And what I loved was being a journalist. And I did that for 30 years. I was a producer with NBC and ABC, and I write. But, when I was in graduate school, my professor, a woman named Phyllis Garland, the only Black woman on the faculty, and which makes a big difference when you have somebody who might understand you, recognized my name, Alelia, because I'm named after Madam Walker's daughter. And when she knew the family, realized what the family connection was, she's the one who really said you need to write about these women, because nobody has written a book. And so ultimately I was able to combine my real love of journalism and research and history with the need to tell this story. So it turned, it went from I'm not all that interested to somebody else outside my family saying, this is really an important story, you need to tell it, to me embracing that, and then using all those skills I learned as a journalist to be able to help, bring Madam Walker's story to other people.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a full circle moment for you, I bet.
definitely.
Okay, so can you give us now? I think I have 3 steps, right? So I'm thinking, what are 3 steps that women entrepreneurs can learn from Madam C.J. Walker, right? The way she's built her business. Were you able to get anything like that? Like, can you give me 3 steps that you think?
Yeah, I may give you more than 3 steps.
Okay.
So let me try the 3.
Okay. I have a pen and paper, so you're good.
I think she would say the first thing you need is a really good product, a really high quality product that you can believe in. Because when you are trying to sell something or you're trying to persuade somebody or provide a service, you really need to believe in that product. And then you have to have confidence in yourself. And because there will be obstacles, there will be setbacks, but you have to really have your eye on the prize, and you can't let people deter you. She said often that the people who doubted her the most were the people who were the closest to her. And sometimes she had to jettison those people, or she had to be patient with them, or she had to tell them to get out of the way. Because, so you have to have a great product, and then you have to have confidence. And then ultimately you have to be able to market that product, promote that product. So you can have a great product, but if nobody knows about it, then it's just sitting there on the shelf. And then I guess I would add the 4th piece to it, and that is once you are out there selling your product, finding a bigger purpose, a higher purpose for that is important. And I think she turned that into teaching other women, helping them become economically independent, using her voice to speak up for others who couldn't speak up for themselves by talking about the anti-lynching movement, by advocating for women, and also being a patron of the arts. She really enjoyed hiring young musicians and artists and promoting their work. So it's have a great product, have confidence in yourself, market your product, and then find a higher purpose where you are using your good fortune, using your influence to benefit others.
What do you think she would say? I'm trying to think of that quote that she said, something about she gave herself a chance or an opportunity.
Oh, right. She said, people would often ask her the secret to her success, and she would say, there is no royal, flower-strewn path to success, and if there is, I have not found it. For whatever success I have attained has been the result of much hard work and many sleepless nights. I got my start by giving myself a start. So don't sit down and wait for the opportunities to come. You have to get up and make them for yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. I think I'm gonna have that printed. Okay, and so I have a couple of questions about how was your mom? Right? Mm-hmm. Did your mom have fond memories of her
Yes. Well, Madam Walker's my great-great-grandmother, born in 1867, died in 1919. Mm-hmm. Her daughter, Alelia Walker, who I'm named after, was born in 1885 and died in 1931. My grandmother was born in 1898 and died in 1945 when my mother was a freshman in college at Howard. And my mother was born in 1928 and died in 1976 when I was in graduate school. So the women in my family, up to my generation, I have made it to my 60s. Everybody, was really died fairly young. And so my mother had memories of her mother, but she was really only 3 years old when Alelia Walker died. So and because she died just as I was starting to do this research, I had great conversations with her as I was starting the research. And I think the greatest gift that she gave me, she was this Christmas when I was at home from Columbia. I was in Indianapolis for Christmas and working on this story, and I was starting to talk to her about it. She was actually in the hospital. And one of my last conversations with her, I said, Mommy, I'm starting to, find that Madam Walker's not perfect. She's got some flaws. And, what do I do about that? And she said, tell the truth, baby. It's all right to tell the truth. And that was a tremendous gift for me, because I think a lot of times when people tell the stories of family members, they feel that they have to cover up or they can't show the flaws.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, if I tried to write about Madam Walker and make her perfect, then no one would think that they could, that people wouldn't see themselves in her. Yeah. So that was important for me. But, from my mother and really from my mother's father, I got tons of, memories. The silverware that we used every day had Madam Walker's monogram. The baby grand piano on which I learned to read music had belonged to Amelia Walker. We had things around the house that had belonged to them. My mother was vice president of the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company when I was growing up. But I would say a lot of my research came from letters. Madam Walker's, we're really, really fortunate that we have these business records and the letters. And, because I am a journalist and I love doing research, she's written about in all the black newspapers every week. Other famous people she wrote letters to. Those letters are in libraries around the country. Wow. So I got to know her in part from the oral history in my family, but also by doing research about her.
Now, the letters can be found in Indianapolis, correct? Is that correct?
The letters are at the Indiana Historical Society.
Okay. And now, and so where can people find information about you? Where can they get your book? Where's a good place for them to find you?
So there are 3 websites. My personal website is aleliabundles.com, and that's ALELIABUNDLES.com. Okay. There is a website that I really have made for people who are doing research, who are writing reports, and it's madamcjwalker.com. There is no E on Madam, so it's MADAMCJWalker.com. Okay. And then, of course, we're so excited that the products, there's a line of Madam Walker products, and that is MCJWBeautyCulture.com. MCJWBeautyCulture.com. Okay. For Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Culture.com. Okay. And, that's for me, there are like all of these pieces. You start with this life of hers where she was born on a plantation. She was a washerwoman until she was 38, married, and one husband died. Another husband was a no good guy. And she moves off to Denver and begins to mix up her products and sell them. And then she goes on the road with her third husband, C.J. Charles Joseph Walker, hence Madam C.J. Walker. Mm-hmm. That's where the name comes from. But, when I look at how she, sort of this arc of her life, and then where she is now, and I think all the pieces that come together really on this 100th anniversary of moving into Villa Lewaro, almost 100 years since she died and 150 years since her birth. We have several different things that I think are, that make me feel as if the puzzle pieces have fit together. There's the Netflix series that's in development. Both Villa Lewaro in Irvington, New York, and the Madam Walker Theater Center in Indianapolis are National Historic Landmarks. Villa Lewaro is also a national treasure from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. There is a product line. So Madam Walker started her company in 1906. The original products were Madam Walker's Wonderful Hair Grower and her shampoo and her Glossine. And those formulas were really great for 1906. But 100 years later, we know a lot more about what hair needs. And sometimes it's not that heavy ointment that healed the scalp infections that she and other women had. But now we know it's really more about moisture. It's about exfoliation and all of those things. So this wonderful new line of products that was developed by Sundial Brands is available in Sephora. And people may know Sundial because they know Shea Moisture, which you can find in many retail stores. And then Nubian Heritage is also a line of soaps and lotions. So Madam Walker is one of 4 divisions of Sundial Brands.
Wow, that's 100 years later.
100 years later.
That's amazing. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I really am truly grateful that you took this time to talk to me. You have no idea. I wish you continued success. you did a fabulous job on the book. I mean, I can't even tell you. I felt like I was watching a movie.
Well, I hope that you will be able to come to whatever premiere we do near you.
I will.
Series.
I will. Thank you.
And I wish you lots of luck. I think you've got a lot of heart. You're out there. You weren't afraid to just pick up the phone and send the email and say, I want to talk. And that's, I think that's what it takes. An entrepreneur has to be fearless about getting what she wants, while also keeping compassion and keeping a good heart about it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like this story needs to be told. More people need to hear it, and I hope that I can help spread the message. That's my hope. And that hopefully somebody will feel inspired to do something, start a business, something. If an African-American woman at the age of 38 can start a business in 1906, I think we're okay in 2018, right? I think it's possible. And, I hope that this message reaches the right ears and it inspires someone to do something. So
I think it will.
I'll send you a link when the episode airs. Okay?
Great.
All right. I'm going to stop recording now.